And the scene is set a few minutes after Alex Blackmoon and Cameron Forsyth left the apartment complex that Father Alvarez had met them in. As he walks down the hallways into the unseasonably chilly air, his phone is abuzz as he contacts Mr. Innocenti. He begins to get a clearer picture of what happened. He begins to understand that one of the Clan of the Rose had in fact ran into some trouble, and that the situation may be a little more complicated than he originally thought. There is very little traffic around the church at this time of night, and the prince and his ghoul walk across without any real need to look up, for there is not a sound but the distant hum of cars far else, and the ever-constant static of the lights, and all other manner of electronics that are going about unseen. He walks up to the door. His ghoul goes before him as he's used to. They've almost have this down sync with each other. The ghoul pulls out the keys, opens the door, holds it open just as the prince walks. He passes without brushing into him at all. The ghoul closes the door, locks it. He's about to turn around and almost runs into the father because he has stopped. He's staring to the side, to the left, to the shrine where those who light candles in prayer have a collection, a place that is meant to symbolize the hope of the kind, where faith can burn even in darkness. There is a figure there, kneeling before hundreds and hundreds of candles, all of them maintained and lit. Even his own shadow, a constant flicker of motion, although animated by this foul curse that is indicative to his clan, is confused. The shadow of this individual is caught between the lights and almost seems to separate into multiple shapes, almost an elegant dance unto itself of different hues. The prince, however, doesn't like surprises, and the ghoul, seeing what has happened, quickly shuffles to the side and away from the prince. He knows he is not in a good mood and would not want to be in his way. The church is closed for the night. I thought the locked door would have been a sign. Why have you broken into this sanctuary?
He'll look at the back of a woman in a long black evening gown and black heels. The back of just drapes down over the light-colored skin. Her hair, if you're looking at the back of her head, is actually cut in a short bob, so it's different than the first time you saw her. He'll also see on the back of the dress, if the light permits, the just the flickers of an outline of probably a hilt on there. And she just says, after taking a deep sigh, says, "It's been over 5 years since my hand has been forced and I've had to kill anyone. It's been a long night, Father."
The prince narrows his eyes. He squints through the gloom. He recognizes the sword, but not the individual. But it is a very unique sword. As he will say, sometimes situation forces our hands. makes us do things we do not wish to do, but know that we must.
She goes to get up from it, and he'll watch her. She puts one hand on the ledge and takes her right hand and does the sign of the cross as she puts the incense stick back down and just looks back up at the the Mary on the half shell. And we'll turn back around, and he'll recognize the face, but obviously can tell that she's cut her hair into a bob and some bangs for whatever reason. And she just looks normally pretty well put together and pretty well, and she has a gold cross on around her neck as well. Just looks almost forlorn, like the spirit's been sapped out of her, compared to even her pretty calm demeanor from the previous time they've met.
The prince takes notice of this, for he's seen this before. He's been intimate with that feeling before, and so the anger that originally was welling up inside of him dissipates ever so slightly, as he will say, "Would you care to have a seat and talk? It is late. But if you need free your spirit of this weight, this guilt, I can do a confession if you wish. A lot has happened from what I have been made aware."
She just looks at him and says, "They call us the monsters. But it's them who've drawn the sword and fired the shots every single time against people who have nothing to do with whatever quarrel they have in their minds. And innocent humans, and Graves' ghoul, and other people that are just getting caught up in whatever vendetta they happen to have. I spent so long digging myself back out of that hole, that inability to feel, that lack of compassion for anything living, and just a drive for power. I thought I had it back under control. But when push came to shove and making the choices were there, I didn't even flinch." And Shum seems regretful about the fact that she didn't even flinch. She said, "Did what had to be done to protect," and she looks around, "protect all of this."
The prince weighs Calliope's words very carefully. He'll turn from her then and say, "Walk with me. I must speak with you first, not as the prince, but as the archdeacon of my faction. For upon my head is the weight of two tasks, both maintaining order within this domain and to ensure that the spirit of our race remains strong. I would speak to you first as the latter." And so he'll begin to walk her down towards the night chapel. Out of character, have you seen any of the videos about it before?
You don't watch them on her bill.
Okay, then I'll give you the description of how it is, because it's pretty cool. So, he takes you down the pews, takes a left into a side hallway where there's a staircase going up and down. He leads you down the stairs, not before giving a nod to his ghoul, who will then sort of loosen his posture, realizing that there is no violence that's going to happen within the sanctuary tonight, and gracefully bow and hurry off somewhere else to perform some other unknown task. But then the prince will continue to lead you down. The staircase will lead to what would almost look like a hallway that would lead to a storage room, but the architecture is very different from that you would have noticed in the church above. I'm not sure whether or not Calliope had took the time to really gaze up the architecture, but there is a
Oh, definitely. She's
glaring
a
difference.
Toreador, so she gets the beauty, and especially the beauty in old churches and just the majesty and the grandeur of it.
Oh yes. Then it will clearly stand out that this corridor is designed very, very differently. The church above, it has the weight of antiquity upon it, and it is definitely, definitely an architecture that was built by the kine. The thumbprint of humanity is all over it. It is a place of worship. The below, though, almost looks like a hallway you would find in a crypt. And judging from the architecture, it seems out of place, and it is a lot newer than what the church was above. And as the prince leads you down past several pillars supporting this hallway, you'll turn to a wall. Even with it not being the brightest right now, Calliope's aspects would allow her to see that one of the bricks is just ever so slightly popping out from the others in the wall. And taking his very fingertips, the prince will grab the very edge of the brick and using his unnatural strength just pull it from the wall. With his other hand, he would reach inside and you would hear the sound of a lever click. And the wall seems to depressurize, and then he pulls it open, revealing that it was a false door. He will then gesture for Calliope to enter.
She'll go through. Have been in more catacombs and crypt-like things on trips to Europe. With them before, but appreciates the she appreciates the balance of color and like the dance of what.
Oh yeah, it is distinct. In fact, if you want to make a, I believe it would be perception. What would be a good roll for that? Perception. I know history is not roll. So academics.
Okay. Let's see. Cancels that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4 successes.
4 successes. Very good. That's above average. Looking around, this architecture is highly reminiscent of something you might have seen done by perhaps someone with a more subterranean or, like you said, macabre aesthetic. If this was done by kindred, and the more you were walking down it, including the door that could only be opened with proper uses of disciplines, it is most certainly kindred. This looks like it was designed possibly by someone of Clan Nosferatu or potentially even Clan Giovanni, but why the latter would be building a structure like this, you would never guess. So it would be more likely that it was Clan Nosferatu.
Yeah, she's been through the Parisian catacombs before, so just walls and walls of bones and skulls. Just.
Oh yes, it draws heavy inspiration, although it certainly does not have the skulls themselves. The prince will return the brick, and from the other side close the door. It is now pitch black, but Calliope steps out through this hallway into a large open chamber that's directly beneath the chapel above. And she will hear the sound of a knob being turned, and lamps that are lining this room begin to glow, casting this dim light all around. As the illumination spreads, you'll see almost a mirror of the chapel you were in before, albeit rather than having a great holy symbol at the end of the pews, there now sits a throne. Lining the wall in between each of the lanterns, there are 7 statues. each one depicting very clearly a kindred, with one of the 7 statues actually defaced, the head completely looking like it was ripped off.
Oh, it doesn't happen to be female, does it?
It actually looks like these statues were made to be particularly androgynous, as if it was part of the
Okay.
creator's design. However, you may make I believe it is intelligence plus politics.
She doesn't know much about anyone else's clan stories, but her foster sire had given her some books on older and legends and stories. So she's kind of heard a little bit of stories of her clan progenitor. Which ones they wanted to tell, because, you know, there's always multiples.
Oh, yes.
So you said intelligence and politics?
I'd say that would be good.
Okay. 1 success.
Yes.
She got 1. No, Ben froze.
Did I lose you?
Yep, nope, we're good. So you froze on my screen. She got 1 success.
1 success. In that case, it's very vague to make out, but it looks like each of these 7 statues correlates to one of the founding clans of the Camarilla. You can make out little more than that.
Of the La Sombra probably is not.
Nope, not there at all.
Yeah.
That much you can make out. The prince will gesture for you to sit at one of the pews that are lining this underchurch, this reflection. Do you look up?
Yeah.
You will see this.
Heard every tutorial.
Oh, yes. While you are examining, you will see that the ceiling of this place almost looks like it goes up further than it actually does, but the more you look, you actually see that the ceiling appears to be painted completely black, like it would normally be a great mural, like at the top of one of the ancient cathedrals in Europe, but rather than depicting scenes of divinity or passages from scripture, it's just completely black. But you can roll.
So look up, yeah.
Use aspects with perception and alertness.
You perception and alertness. Oops. Do you want me to put my aspects rating in, or just roll perception alertness?
Roll perception alertness plus your aspects.
Okay. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 successes.
4. Ooh, that is so close. But no, it's just 1 shy to see the cool thing about it. But you do notice that this ceiling, it's not just painted black. It's made up of thousands upon thousands of individual dots. It is a painting of pointillism. Billions
like
upon billions of black dots all laying over each other to create this black void.
Kind of like a mosaic-y kind of thing.
Oh, yes. But again, the prince will gesture to one of the pews.
She'll look up and just go, it's more introspective that way.
The prince will raise an eyebrow and say, "You do not see it, do you?"
Well, all of the different little dots and the small bits, but I probably have to stare at it a little bit longer. I was never good with those optical illusions you got in books as a kid.
The prince actually looks taken aback for just a second before just saying, "I never thought about it like that before. Kind of takes some of the magic out of it, but you're not wrong. Gaze at it long enough and you will, well, that'll spoil the surprise."
She'll probably, at some point, she'll look up again and probably, like, look at it harder, you know?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
but she'll roll that a little bit later.
All right. In that case, the prince will sit down at an adjacent pew, and he will say, "The evil of man can be found distilled in our condition. All of our brutality, all of our hunger, all of our disregard for each other's life, that roots is in mankind. For it was the sin of our forefathers that led to our curse. Man is blessed because they are able to live with sin but a whisper within their soul. It is only when the curse takes them their punishment does the curse give that sin, that hunger, that base urge a voice of its own. And then it starts hunting us from within. You know of what I speak."
Yes. They had told the story of the struggles and how anything you would have done as a human becomes amplified tenfold. Your abilities to smell, your abilities to hear, your abilities to love, your senses, your lusts, and your hungers. But Nazira also mentioned too that our clan was the only ones who managed to skate out without being cursed, so to speak, because we didn't fight ourselves. We didn't infight. We didn't seek to destroy the others of our kind. And we were told to flee. The other that we got out. We were left to care for those mortals, to be as close to humanity as we could. Meanwhile, the Nosferatu were cursed with irrevocable looks. The clan of Malkov, their minds warped and twisted in tunnels. The Ventru, so particular in every single one of their tastes that it becomes a flaw for their existence. And they said, if they find out that the Rose escaped this curse, they'll come after you. Enjoy your time with humanity. Enjoy your blessing. I fought so hard to get it back.
Do you still believe that you were not cursed, Miss Tavoularis?
Well, we were cursed in the same way all the rest of the clans were, but in terms of things bestowed upon individual clans, I think we did make it out pretty well. But that gift of being able to be close to humanity when you betray it. And the worst part was we went to try to fight it and try to those who within our flock. Only of phrases and left with there's
Sorry, I actually cut out for a moment.
She basically went over how, oh God, let me remember what I said.
No, that was good. It's just like near the very end, it started to cut out a little.
She basically said we were left, cleaning up the mess of their mad. We just wanted to go and try to protect our own luck.
All right, then. So the prince will close his eyes and make himself sigh, as he will just look up again and say, look up again, Miss Tavoularis, and tell me what you see.
See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 this time. There we go.
Oh, that will do it. In fact, that actually is a new record. In that case, the prince will begin to tell you. He says, When I was a childer, my sire told me that we, as a clan, were unique amongst the others because we, too, were not cursed. That we were given the greatest gift of all. We were touched by that primal darkness, that which fuels the curse. And as Calliope is looking up at the ceiling, a shape begins to take it as each of those dots are then covered up layer upon layer, slowly making the outline of one unblinking eye. Just gazing down. Yep. One unblinking eye staring directly down from above. As he will say, when I was young, I used to believe that. But then, well, I actually saw what it was that she was talking about. I actually saw that primeval darkness that she had been so certain was not a curse but a gift from on high. And I didn't believe we were cursed anymore. I say this to you, to tell you that there is no difference between a blessing and a curse, Miss Tavoularis. Every single gift, every single torment, they are what they are because there's a small part of us that is human, and it is that part that allows us to decide whether or not what we have been given is a blessing or a curse. That is why the temptation of the beast is so appealing to our lesser kin. For the beast promises the blissful oblivion that is freedom. Freedom from all of life's torments and all of life's joys at the price of endless want and the surrender of the self.
She'll smile a little bit when he says lesser kin. I mean, she won't say anything, but she'll kind of be, Toreador and La Sombra, both high clans, in her head, you know, a little bit. Still, a little bit of the snooty breeding from the high clan business, just because her sire was that way, and John's very much that way too. So,
oh yes, like the
connotation is
the connotation is skewed in that direction. So it definitely, whether he wanted to or not, hinted at his own upbringing by those comments. As he will then say, when I must ask you a question now. Why did you come here? If it is your connection to humanity, your connection to life, this blessing of the rose, why would you come to an abandoned church in the middle of the night, knowing that there would not be a soul around
I
to
suppose
seek salvation?
I suppose because you don't need another soul. I was raised Catholic, even though we were in the South. Then sung for the Southern Baptists and the Presbyterians and played organ for the Presbyterians to make money going through school. But that Catholic upbringing, you just, no matter where you go, you know, there it walks as well. And there's something to be said about just the majesty of a structure that big. When I went to Notre Dame and Sacré-Cœur in Paris, just walking into something that took centuries for mere mortals to build, all for the glorification of something bigger than them, just the majesty and the humblingness, it puts you back into a perspective of what little piece you are within the giant puzzle that is everything that walks on this earth. And it kind of makes you stop and think about where you fit in that puzzle and how you blend harmoniously with everything else that's around you. I spent many nights in the church just by myself. Worked for the Tremere for a little while, doing some of their cantoring, but it wasn't so much for the Tremere, it was just the catharsis of being able to recite the same prayers, go through the same chants, go through the motions that people have done for millennia before you, and try to find how you fit. It took a while. I didn't want to admit what we were and what I had become, but God places everything on this earth for a reason. You may not, like you said, you may not necessarily be evil, you may not necessarily be good, but how you treat others and how you leave your mark on the world is, well, that will tell with time how you left your impact.
Prince will smile, and he'll say, I'm glad to see that your self-reflection has helped. Your spirituality shows, Miss Tavoularis. It is refreshing to see somebody who can still be awed by God's wonders. There are so few people like that in Reno anymore.
Don't get me wrong. I love a good random row in the bedroom with some random human before taking a drink, but that's the Toreador talking in me. But there's more than just black or white stereotypes with what people are, and there's more than just black or white with our actions. But I still can't get away from her face.
Before I address you as the prince, I have one last solace to offer. If your soul has been marred by the cold grasp of the beast, if you find parts of your being numbed by its predation, there is a way to help salvage what has been lost. One of the duties of my faction is to ensure that our kind does not lose touch with their humanity, what makes them alive. And it is because of this that we have begun developing rituals that would remind us of why we're alive, what it was meant to be alive, to be human. If you undergo this ritual, then the part of your soul that the beast has been able to snatch away may be loosened from its frigid grip, but there is a terrible price for it on your mind and body.
It always is.
If you wish, it is my obligation to assist in any way that I can. But no, this will not be pleasant, and it will strip you of the powers that you have grown accustomed to.
I'll have to think on it as well.
Of course, take your
It
time.
took me 5 years last time to come back up to where I was before, but the slow and gradual progression of time, as long as you keep focus, helps. As long as you keep that connection and you don't grow distant and jaded. Although I think my clan follows the heartbeat of humanity a little bit more. We think in weeks and months. Meanwhile, the Ventrue think in decades and centuries.
Mm. It is a difference of culture more than anything else. But that is not the point for now. Take your time. This is your unlife. And it is the sanctity of your soul that is yours. I would not at all wish anything foul to befall it. So please understand that if situation distracts from you reconnecting, there is always this option.
She nods.
Very well. Now, it pains me as the archdeacon of this city, but I must address you now as the prince. And with that, he will get up. He will then proceed to walk towards the throne that is at the very end of the aisle. He will sit upon it and face you. It has come to my attention that you were at the epicenter of the shooting that happened earlier.
Indeed, we were at the wrong place. Well, we were at the right place at the wrong time.
What happened?
Take my shadow like you did, Graves. I want you to know I'm not lying.
Prince will look at you for a second, and then you won't nod. But the lights that line the room, you begin to notice that they are positioned in a way that does bring the shadows into a particular sharpness. And as his turns its head towards your own, it will reach out its clawed hand again, and it will just simply touch yours on the head, as he will spend his manipulation and...
She won't resist it, so, just as long as he doesn't botch, I guess.
Yeah, true, he could totally botch. He could pull a Graves.
Could pull a Graves.
David, you are the man. No, but he should be good.
Nope, did botch. Cool. Yeah.
So 2 successes. So
yeah, she's not resisting, so.
Tell me what happened.
We started the evening with Stitches, Emma, and myself in the cabaret. Emma had mentioned your job for me. And I told her it sounded like a suicide mission for someone that you'd send off that you don't care about, someone who's expendable. But that was not the point. The television turned on to talk about the news of Angelica having gone missing. That's grave school. I'd spent quite some time building a relationship with Angelica. She was a musician like myself. Graves wasn't treating her well. It wasn't my place to pull her out of that situation because she wasn't mine, but I could sure as hell show her kindness and try to convince her to live the rest of her days with her cancer, but on her own terms. I knew he was going to kill her. And that night when we were at the mortuary, I told her to run, and she left. And they had mentioned that she was missing on the news, and I just assumed it was because maybe she'd left and gone to Boston, started to live her dream of the conservatory. They also mentioned the friends of hers that had murdered her family. So I just touched out to talk to her. I don't need phones for that. But I asked her, don't tell me where you are, but let me know if you're all right and if you're happy. And she responded back, This is all wrong. They just made her kill her whole family in front of me, and I don't know why. Please help. As she finished, this voice just entered into my head and said, "She's mine." She'll try to like mimic this androgynous, like growling voice to the best of her ability with her. I go with her performance. She's probably pretty good at this. And she says, and then as if I got hit by a truck, my whole body just tensed up and I was thrown back against the wall in the cabaret, denting the wall as if I had just had an impact with a truck hitting me. And when that happened, I saw it must have been her emotional connection because it was so strong to this location, but I saw the Lucky View Motel. Been there a couple times in the last 5 years, not gonna lie. I took a few guys there, but I figured it must have been where she was, or maybe something happened to her there. Maybe that's where the murder was. I'd only see things with the sight when there are strong emotional connections. And Emma and Stitches were there, and I told them what happened. And of course, with the rest of the situation going on and being tasked with trying to find out more about the hunters and or approach them and negotiate with them, we went to try to go check on her, see if we could find Angelica, see if she's okay, see if anyone else is being hurt. We split up. I took the bike. They took their own cars. We got to the motel. There was a cop car in the parking lot. I went to listen to them, just the two of them, talking about asinine banter of the day. But at the desk was another one, like Father Vick. His hues, still gold, but not quite as strong as the father, but emanating the same kind of feeling that the father had. So Stitches went to be stealthy, and Emma went to be stealthy, and I hide in plain sight. So went in, talked to the gentleman at the desk, the clerk, booked a room under a pseudonym with cash, smiled and played, flirty with the dirty old man, and then took my plastic card and went out on the ground floor and proceeded to smoke a cigarette and kind of walk around and listen. You know how people smoke at night and they just take a stroll and look at the moon. I walked by the room where that gentleman had checked in, and he was in the room praying. It's the same prayer that Father Vick had outside of the mortuary, but he just tripped on the words. It's like he hadn't committed it to memory the same way that Father Vick had. Again, praying about the monsters and redeeming their souls and that kind of it was almost like a desecration of the rosary in a way. They changed the words to it, but similar in structure. So at that point, Stitches had gone around back, and I can hear them. That the sight helps me hearing them too. And Stitches said that he was seen, but he was seen while obfuscated. A gentleman on the second floor was looking out the window at him, and even though he was obfuscated, it was straight through him. He looked Stitch's figure directly in the eyes and then closed the curtain. And at this point, I slowly took my cigarette break up the stairs and went around the side a little bit to the end of the motel, to the corner. And there were some mortals out there, just guys beering it up, having a party. So chatted up with them a little bit, because what's the best thing you can do in a situation like this? Blend in with the mortals. Had a beer with him, started talking and flirting. Emma helped a little bit. The gentleman who was in the room, I didn't see him, but I swear he had to be there at some point too. Just this feeling. Meanwhile, I'm listening, talking with the beer guy, and I hear a muffled scream, and then as if it was dampened by a pillow. And so I said to him, "Hey, what's that? Did you hear that?" And he looked at me and said, "What?" I said, "No, it's screaming." And he said, "Yeah, I'm sure they're screaming." I said, No, it's not hotel sex sounds. This is something. She's hurt. It sounds like a man's beating up a woman. You're strong. You're big. I'm scared to do it myself. Can you go see what's going on?" And he, typical like a macho human man, said, "Sure, I got this, honey," and went over to the door and banged on the door and said, "Hey, what's going on?" No sound. At this point, I'm leaning in closer towards the door, but I'm right in between the door and the window, because if something's there, I don't want to be in visible sight of the window or in the door in case something comes through the door or the glass. So I'm leaning up against the frame, listening as well as I can. And the gentleman who I was having the beer with, he turns to the side and says, "Hey, buddy, what are you just doing standing there?" But I looked, and there wasn't anyone standing there. It's like an invisible man. But this mortal could see it, and I couldn't, unless he's just talking to the air.
Like a ghost.
Like a ghost. But at that point, I heard the cocking of a shotgun inside the room. And before I could even get that poor man to move out of the way, the shotgun fired straight through the door, hit him in the chest. He fell off the balcony and was sent down onto the grass. At this point, Stitches was on the ledge and went up to go and see if he could check out what was going on in the room in case it was one of the hunters or something like that, to either see if we can get one and take them with us to extract more information or stop the situation, or God forbid he had actually hurt the woman that was in the room that we had heard. Emma stayed with him. I did what any normal human would do, went to blend in, ran to the cops, because when a shotgun's fired, what do humans do? Run to the police. Best thing to do is to hide in plain sight.
And at this point, the father, from his throne, can have sight of the shadow at all times. Has everything she'd been saying been true?
Everything is dead true.
As he takes note of this and continues to listen intently to the story, though you can see that he's gripping the sides of his throne ever more tightly now.
Yeah, every freaking word is true. And she said, I ran as fast as a mortal could around the ledge and down the stairs to go back over to the cop car to go get them. And got the police. It was a male and a female. Said, "Oh my God, I was just having a beer with a man and he got shot and there was someone in this room and we need help." And, panic, typical assistance. And they said, "You see anything?" "I don't know. I ran as soon as I heard the shot." They said, "Hold on, ma'am. We'll investigate." One of them radioed in. The other one, they both started to head off, and I followed along by the second, just like. And at this point, from our link, I don't know exactly what had happened with Stitches and Emma, but the man inside with the shotgun had taken out the woman. And by the time I got back around to where they were, Stitches had already made off to run from the situation, and all I could hear him saying was, "Breach, breach, they saw me, they saw me. He's dead." And the body of the hunter, at this point, having had his head blown off, and the human in the room, the man with his shotgun, all he kept saying was, they're monsters, all of them monsters. They need to pay. They need to pay. I don't know. He was out of his mind, and this is not the first time we've heard humans rambling on and on about needing to stop the monsters, needing to stop the monsters. I don't know what their powers are. I don't know what they can do. I know nothing about that, but all I know is it wasn't us. And they're doing something to these people for whatever reason, whatever vendetta they have. That man with the shotgun in the room didn't deserve that. Unfortunately, at this point, the police had caught up with Emma, and they had seen Stitches, and Stitches was making off at a rapid pace to go out of the situation. I suppose his obfuscate didn't work at this point for whatever reason. I don't know. But Emma took a blunt object to both the male and the female cop, and they were on the upstairs ledge. The male was pretty much almost knocked out, and the female was face up. Man lost his gun. It had fallen right next to his side. He dropped it when he got knocked out by Emma. And the other SWAT cars were just maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 seconds away, tops. And I looked at Emma, and I looked at the police. And the last bits I could hear from my connection with Stitches before he was out of range was, kill them, breach, they saw me, kill them. And at this point, anyone else who had seen us was dead. The gentleman who I had the beer with was on the floor. The hunter who was there in the room was no longer there. Shotgun man, I think Stitches made off with him as far as I'm aware. And then there were the two cops. So I took, with my dress, his gun on the floor. And it's like the old senses just came back. And I put it right to his head and shot him point blank first. And then looked at her. And she was still looking up at me. And I just pointed right in between her forehead and said, I'm sorry, love, today's not your day. And just pulled the trigger on her, dropped the gun back so as not to leave any fingerprints, told Emma to split, and jumped off the ledge on the back side of the hotel where it was dark, and the rest of the civilians were all out front in the parking lot. If anything, there might have been the one hobo with the alcohol bag still on the side that he may have seen Stitches. I don't know. But at that point, the rest of the SWAT cars were coming in. And who's going to believe a hobo anyway? So I ran, had parked my motorcycle 2 blocks down at a completely different establishment, zipped back in because the motorcycle's easier to get in and out of streets than a car. And then took a drive, detoured around, stayed far away from that berth, cooled my head a little bit, and then drove over here. And she didn't lie about a damn thing. That's the God's honest truth.
The prince, you've seen that look before. It's the look of a prince who is hearing worse and more troubling news. That demeanor one puts over oneself, to not show any weakness, to not show any fear, to not show any anger.
She knows that well.
Slowly gets frayed as the story gets more and more worse. But he sighs again and says, "You have done well to uphold the masquerade. We will make sure that that last individual does not speak to anyone, or if he does, he will be in such a state that no one will believe him. I am sorry for what happened to your acquaintance. I do
Still
have
even
a
worse.
few more questions, though.
Yeah,
Please
she says,
continue.
even worse, we didn't have time to find Angelica. I still don't know whether they have her, what they're doing with her, if they're trying to take her for vengeance, why they're leading this rampage with humans as bombs and shields. The Sabbat resort to those tactics.
Yes, they do. Hunters do not normally. Are you aware of why I asked for you to parley with this Father Vick? Before now, of course, I'm quite certain time for diplomacy is far, far over.
She says, no, honestly, if I'm being frank, it I'm not one of the higher council. I'm younger, I'm more expendable, and if I succeed, fabulous. I can get a pat on the back. But if I fail, then I could be labeled as a martyr for the Camarilla and brushed aside. Or if I meet final death, no harm, no foul. I don't like dealing with these supernatural things. I've had to deal with some of the ones who act like the Tremere before, and it was a nightmare in New Sarum. I don't have the political influence. I don't have the influence over the police or anything like that. But if we can't see them, and if they can see us, we may need to fight them with our mortals.
Prince will take in your words, and then he will continue. He will say, a letter arrived at Graves' mortuary. And then he repeats the message that was left there. Although the prince doesn't know about it, it's basically the same one that Kalliope got herself, since the prince is unaware of that. He will then say, after hearing this from Emma, and knowing that they marked down your establishment on the map, since they had been following, as I've come to understand, both you, Emma, and possibly our own seneschal, you are one of the most competent of the Toreador in this city right now. Not only that, but you have the most life. I thought that you would be the perfect person to talk to these hunters because your humanity shows.
I'm just afraid
Hunters,
if I walk into the den, I won't make it out.
That is why, unless Emma misdelivered the message again, you are to invite him into your territory. It would be he who would be walking into the domain of the kindred. After all, they already know about its existence.
They did send that letter. It said to the owner, and the woman who actually owns things on paper took the letter first. Oh no, Ben froze. Oh no, he's good. Okay. She says, she showed it to me, and I didn't touch it. I kept fingerprints off. And I said, put that into the safe. I'm going to check. Made a friend with the police. I'm going to check with the police. But I told her threatening mail is 5 years in prison for sending threats through the mail. And everything that looked on that letter was just the regular words of a fanatical kook. There was absolutely nothing that looked and screamed vampire. So she went to take it to the police.
The prince his demeanor will start getting a little cold again for a second as he says, I do trust that this was before my notice of the lockdown came about.
Yes, indeed. That came
Good.
kindly after.
As his demeanor immediately returns to what it was before. Then you are forgiven for dabbling into police affairs. I have as you are now aware, recently reinstated the old prince's restrictions on gaining influence with the police and City Hall.
Oh, I don't want any of it, but I do want the mortals doing our work for us. I think the best way to fight these people is for us to not fight them directly.
You are correct. As caretakers, we already have enough trouble to worry about amongst the mortal herd. It will be good if this event at the hotel were simply just a madman with a shotgun. Then they're just any other sad tragedy in this desert wasteland that we find ourselves, where the sins of man seep into the very buildings themselves and it's inescapable. But what you have described,
It's different.
it is.
It's almost as if you were to combine a Malkavian power and the Ventro ability to just force minds to do what they want. It's as if he was...
Tell me, Miss Tavoularis.
Oh no.
Sorry, you froze it.
It froze for me, so we're good. It said, "Tell me, Miss Tavoularis," and that's as far as I got.
Dang, that keeps happening. That happened in an earlier scene too, but yeah. It's like, tell me, have you...
Blank, blank, blank.
Anywho, have you ever heard of a wraith?
Ghosts. Things. I've... The Giovanni were particular friends of these things, although the last time I dealt with the Giovanni, it was me staking the Dawn of the Giovanni and putting him at the feet of our prince. I was none too fond of those wraith lovers and dealing with specters sneaking around. Sometimes I can see shades and shadows and colors as if something was there, but it's not. But I don't know much about them.
There's a mixed debate amongst members of the theocracy, especially heated now that we have an alliance with the Balefire Coalition and their Cappadocian scholars from ages yore. But essentially, wraith is either a soul trapped in purgatory or the remnant of what a person was, the mortal desire, both good and bad, the echo of the scream, as it were, bound by that which gave it form. According to some scholars, it can be something as simple as love, or as unique as hate. I bring that up because I heard from our friend, Miss Bellafleur, that word was written in Graves's inner sanctum at the mortuary, along with his other experiments.
She will pause for a moment and debate whether or not she wants to say it, and then she'll just go ahead and say it. She says, I know he was going to kill Angelica because the first time I tried to listen to her mind, all I could hear was, he's going to kill me, he's going to kill me, he's going to kill me, he's going to kill me. So as soon as I heard that, I tried to strike a friendship with the poor girl, brought her over to the cabaret I told her, come to the cabaret, you'll be safe. And I don't think she knew what was going on, but she just ended up there one night. And I sat with her for some drinks and talked with her about her history and brought her back into the dressing room to help show her how to put on makeup to cover her bruises. And when helping her with the makeup and the shoulder covering, on her shoulder was a symbol drawn. I had to look at it at first, and then I had to draw a picture of it on a cocktail napkin and send it to my foster mother. She's an Egyptologist. But it was a symbol of Anubis and Sobek holding a heart. And I just asked her, "What's this?" And all she texted back was, "Stop whatever you're doing. That's dangerous. Get away." And so my only guess is, if she was going to be killed and she's got the symbol of a god of death and a god of death and things like that holding a heart on her shoulder, she must have been the sacrifice. And Graves wanted to hold an Elysium, and he said he was going to do something spectacular. I'm no genius, but 2 + 2 is 4.
Consider this, though. Another item of interest that Miss Emma found was a blackboard, along with Wraith. And upon the words on that blackboard were the words, "I must save her." And then the name Angelica, over and over and over again. Not only that, as soon as we staked Mr. Graves, Angelica goes missing. And now people are starting to see ghosts. What if there is a chance that this person who's going to kill her is the last scream of an individual who is already dead? What if we had our eyes on the wrong person?
We could.
I have something.
She'll say, "Mr. Graves was not one that I would suspect to be a," and she'll kind of pause before she says it, "to be a Setite or anything like that. I mean, he likes death and all. He's a Cappadocian, but it didn't make as much sense. What you do with your ghouls in your own time is your business, but I'm more worried for her."
Prince decides upon something now, perhaps against his better judgment, but he needs all the allies he can get. He will retrieve something from the inside pocket of his attire and will hold it up and say, "This is Graves's notes on the experiments he did. There is a problem. It's all written in German."
She'll kind of shudder for a moment. I'll make sure I don't show it. As soon as he says German.
Oh, goody. Time for a perception roll.
Yeah. I guess I'll probably do...
It's going to be 6 for the prince.
Should I do appearance? Because she's not really trying to manipulate anything. She's just probably trying to keep a calm appearance. So maybe appearance and subterfuge.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Ooh,
okay.
You beat me then.
Okay.
He doesn't notice.
So when he notices German, like he probably won't pick up on the tick or anything like that, but just throws her for a little like PTSD.
Well, not missing a beat, he will go on to say, "I believe his research for this project he was doing is in here. We need to find out what it was and fast, for I fear, well, whether or not I have truly, well, let us say I have misplaced my trust in Mr. Graves' capacity to be a productive member of this princedom. I sincerely hope I did not misplace his moral character with that of someone who would bring about foul darkness to this place. And so, I'm going to give you this, because I know you understand German at the very least. I assume you can also read it.
She says, bits and pieces. It was my sire's birth tongue, but she takes her phone out. They're probably too far down to get any reception at this point, but she'll look at it and say, when we get back up, Google Translate has this cool new feature where you can just look at it and it turns the words from German into English.
Really? As fascinating as that is, as the prince checks himself.
She's probably showing that she's like a kid at the technology age. You know?
Well, he certainly is fascinated by that, but he quickly reins himself back in and says, I would very much not like to have this information anywhere near this internet that I have heard has become even more inscrutable with each passing day.
Of course. We'll do it the old-fashioned way.
Yes. If I give this to you, and you can help me make sense of it, I will owe you.
She says, I will look it over and do what I can with that.
I believe it's time that we had a talk with our mutual friend, Dietrich. That is for another night. Change is going to be fast approaching this city. Given the state, especially now that we are more than certain that there is a supernatural force other than these hunters at work,
Unless
the city needs to remain unified. If these hunters are using the supernatural power, then they are not hunters. They are false saviors, heretics, blasphemers.
You're older than I am. Have you seen them before, being able to just warp people's minds and turn them into creatures just to do their will?
Never. A hunter, as he pauses for a minute, but he's already said too much, so perhaps in this rare moment where he at least sympathizes with Calliope on that spiritual level, he will continue, although this may come back to bite him later. He says, I've only seen a true hunter once, and that was a very, very long time ago. A real hunter. They are a stone that does not get eroded by the ocean, no matter how long it washes against them, no matter how long it corrodes them. They may not be the most stable, they may not even be the most well put together, but for someone to have true faith in God, true faith, to know his blessing, is to have the light that undoes the curse. The power of lust becomes the whisper in the tavern again. The endless hunger becomes the gluttonous impulse. The unnatural strength becomes simply good self-maintenance. A hunter with that power does not turn people into monsters. They undo monsters and turn them into people. With all that implies. I have seen people who can turn people into monsters, but they are not hunters. Far from it.
And I've seen creatures that can turn kindreds into humans, if only for a short time. So I suppose anything's possible.
What the devil kind of creature can turn a kindred into a human?
It was Han Tanley was his name. One of the first nights in New Sarum that my sire let me out of the town. Went into a bar. Something always happens in a bar. And from what I can gather, he was like a vampire in a sense, but he didn't feed on blood. He fed on energy, and he was Asian. And he looked at someone and judged them unworthy and told them that they needed to reconsider their position on life. And actually, and she'll pause before she does it, and then since they're in a sharing mode, she'll go ahead and share anyway. It says, it was actually John, Mr. Stanshope, who was turned mortal for a weekend. After 150 years of only walking the night, what would you do?
The prince is at a loss for words. Truly at a loss for words. As he just says, I do not know.
Was that point
But I would never want to run into a creature with that kind of power.
I don't want to ever again. So you can understand some of the apprehension for having to deal with these things, but invite them into the Lotus Maw. We shall. Preferably on a busy Saturday night in the middle of a flock of people, so he doesn't try to do anything.
You're reconsidering my offer.
Because someone has to do something for this city. She'll kind of tuft for a little bit, and she says, I don't sit around and play politics like the rest of the people who are older than me and have been here longer than me. They can sit and complain about masquerade breaches and how horrible all the younger kindred are, but we're out there like the foot soldiers doing the damn work. So somebody's got to do it. Instead of playing politics and trying to see who'll be the next one to gain a different status or take another set of power, all I want is things to go back to normal so I can just enjoy the normalcy of a Friday night at a club without having to cut my hair to try to disguise myself.
Then you have my support and backing. If you need any resources or extra help, ask me now, and whatever can be done to ensure the success and your safety will be done.
We may just want to have a few more hired security on hand for that night.
Then it will be done.
I don't want another mortal being wandering in almost like a mindless zombie, just screaming about monsters and killing my patrons.
I will make sure to get somebody who could be on hand in case things turn south.
I would ask John, but until he's done sorting himself, God, I miss him. He could just look at someone's mind and fix the problem.
As the prince will hesitate for a minute and say, I know someone of who could help. Expedite your friend's recovery.
Yeah, I think Miss Blackmoon mentioned it.
Black Moon is skilled, but depending on where you sit on the fence currently, the one I had in mind is far more infamous or renowned.
She kind of raised an eyebrow.
Are you familiar with the Salubri, Calliope?
Well, they did just wake up, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. They're still relatively new around nowadays, though.
Yeah. You know what? I'll just make a plain old academics roll to see if I've bumped into it in a book. Academics intelligence. 1 success. She might have just have heard the name in one of the older books that she was reading from Nazira's library. She'll say, I saw the name in one of her books, but it was in passing.
The Salubri are an interesting lot because they are gifted with the powers to heal both the body and, at later levels of attainment, the mind. Whether or not they are actually able to truly heal someone or simply speed up the process of one putting themselves back together is open for debate, but they once were one of the more reputable clans in the times before the Camarilla, much like our new friends, the Cappadocians. If you want, I will use my connections with my own faction to request a healer come to Reno and help your friend.
She'll say, I'll ask him. She'll say, even though he's pretty much looks like he's been in, torpor for, or like just this like comatose, occasionally like might lift an eyebrow, like, the guy that screws up the big mind machine in X-Men, the handicap. That's like John right now. She'll say, I can still talk to him. His mind isn't gone. It's just everything else on him is taking a break after that Malkavian destroyed the city. John got out anyone who we could still get out. Many were lost, but he just, with things being altered in a Venture's mind, he needs to put everything back into place before he feels like he's in control again. And actually, that's why I developed learning how to listen and communicate with him without speaking. It's just, there was no other way to get into him to make sure he was still okay. He's still there. He's just not done cataloging the Dewey Decimal System yet.
I understand. The prince will pause for a moment and then say, that is all I require of you for now, Miss Tavoularis. I wish you good luck. If you need find sanctuary again, this place is always open. Although, I am curious, how did you get in here anyways? The doors were locked.
Just say, if you go up a couple of windows, up the side, the water vent, that filters the water from one of the little butleries on the roof. Just climb up that. There's another window up there that's not quite shut. I suppose that's probably a tricky thing, but I don't think too many normal people are going to be crawling through that window.
Seems my assistant has been slacking. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Don't mention it.
Until next time, Miss Tavoularis, go with grace unto God, and be safe.
She'll do thumb, thumb and thumb. from having done that many a times before. She'll look back up at the eyeball before she goes. Still probably staring at her.
Yep, it's done in that very uncanny way so that it looks like it's always following you, which is...
No matter where you go, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she'll just say, "Can I actually play your organ for a moment before I go?" It's been almost 4 years. And when she goes upstairs, she'll turn on the rest of the pipes. It's something that's been very cathartic, another catharsis for her. Just when you don't know what to do, she just falls into music because that's a spiritual release and an emotional release. So I will roll my Dex performance and my celerity. So we take out that one, take out that one. Yay, ones. 1, 2, 3. So she's a little rusty because it's been a while, but she still gets 3 successes.
Nice.
Probably still trying to figure out the exact stops and things on this organ because each manual is different. But she'll go through actually some pieces that probably would have been from the Italian Renaissance, having been her degree is in choral music education, so and Renaissance being one of her favorite time periods, but she'll just break into something like an organ arrangement of a Palestrina piece that would have been after the Reformation, and after the Council of Trent. After the Council of Trent. So Second Reformation within the church period, when high polyphony kind of got smoothed back out, and just play for probably about, maybe 15 minutes, just listening to the chain suspensions as they go and how each one of the, the 4 different voices on the line, picking out just the right flute sounds and just the right oboe sounds and, and changing them as she goes. Like she's just enjoying like the textures of it. And, it wouldn't be what a normal person probably would do, but she's just enjoying like the sounds and manipulating it and listening to things bouncing off the wall.
As she's engrossed in the music, she does not notice that the prince has come up from the night chapel and just sort of leaning in the archway that leads to the staircases, looking sidewise at the performance, listening, smiling. It's been a very long time since somebody played the organ, in truth. There aren't a lot of performances going on at night, unfortunately. And it is a pleasant surprise for him. A few minutes later, the ghoul comes down the stairs smiling, just really enjoying it too. The prince leans over and whispers something to the ghoul. The ghoul's eyes go wide for a minute, and then he hurriedly turns on the spot and jogs back up the stairs towards that window that he did not close all of the way. And shall that be where we end our scene?
She'll probably just finish playing some into the night, and he'll probably wander back, and, when she gets done, she'll just walk out on her own.
And that is our scene. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful night.